Hi, baddies. Welcome back to another episode of Terra's Baddies Club. It has been quite a week so far. I am so excited because The Secret Lives of the Mormon Wives is coming back on tomorrow, the 14th. So I'm so excited to get into that, watch that. It has been one of my guilty pleasures on TV. And then also, I'm starting back up my podcasting course starting June 3rd. It's going to be so fun. I just got done recording a video with Hollywood Wade for it. He was on the podcast originally, probably like in some of the earlier episodes. I want to say like 4, 5, 6, or 7, something like that, maybe 11 or 12. But I recorded an episode with him and it was so fun. We got to talk about YouTube and also transitioning podcast over to YouTube. But I hope that you guys get to join me in it. And then also, I am just trying to start a nonprofit, get together stuff for that as well. So if you have experience in nonprofit, I'm just trying to get everybody's ideas, everybody's opinions, and try to do things right so that I can really help a lot of women that suffer from domestic violence. So I'm really excited to also get into this episode. It's more of a fun episode. It's with my friend Mitzi Martin. I met her through my friend Troy Jensen. He has been on a previous episode as well, but she is a model and an actress. She is also married to a rock star. So we're going to talk a little bit about her life and talk about her modeling career, her as a mother, and also letting her daughter have a modeling career and kind of helping her navigate that as well. So let's get into this episode with Mitzi Martin. Hi, Mitzi. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to have you. And I was just talking to you about mental health and just some of the things you were talking about, how you're preparing for the next stages of life, but you're getting yourself more busy now and preparing for that transition. And I just noticed that you have such great mental health about yourself, about situations, about your family, just how you talked about them was so bright and gracious. So I would love to get your first opinion about mental health, and then we'll get into about where people might know you from.
Okay, so wait, say that again. Where do you want to start? I'm sorry, I had a little interruption.
No worries. So we'll start to talk about mental health, and then we'll get
Okay.
into where people might know you from.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So shall I start?
Yes. So tell me about mental health. You were telling me how even your daughter has mental health in her school now and how that wasn't really a thing when you were even modeling.
No, no. When I was younger, there was never any discussion about mental health. That wasn't even a thing. And now, these days, we're so well educated that at school in health, my children are learning about mental health, and they focus on good mental health and tools for mental health. So it's just as significant as physical health, which is really great. And my kids are such great communicators because of that. But when I was a kid, we never even talked about stuff like that. I remember sort of in my teen years is when people start talking about stress. And I had never even heard the word stress before. So, and my mom got these vitamins. They were vitamins and they named them stress tab. And we were all like, oh, if we take these vitamins, we won't be stressed. But I think in general, I feel pretty grounded and stable. And I feel like I'm pretty solid as far as my mental health. And I think one of the reasons is I have a lot of reasons, but I think the main reason is because my parents were really stable, really grounded. I come from a big family and really supportive family. And so I had a lot of stability in my life, which I know that I'm lucky because of that. And then another reason is I think because I chose never to drink or do drugs in my life. And I think that that's helped me be really clear, goal focused, grounded, see things for what they are. And hopefully I am passing that on to my children.
Yes, I love that so much. And a part of having a secure attachment, even, is having a well rounded base for having a secure attachment with your family. And it kind of sounds like that is what you got from them. And that kind of trickled into you having stability even in your career, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yes. So, how did you get started in your career? I know that I'm going to say that again because my dog was underneath me. So, how did you get started in your career? Because I know Troy, our good friend who connected us,
Yeah.
he was telling me how you had this one shoot that kind of just made your career and got you started.
Well, how I initially got started in modeling, and back then, you have to remember we didn't have the internet and social media, and I'm in my 50s. It was a while ago. So there was kind of the traditional way that girls started modeling, and they were scouted. And so I was, in fact, scouted at age 14. My mom and I'm sure that people have heard these stories, but my mom and I were in a mall in Orange County, and a woman came up to me and she said, "Do you want to be a model?" And of course, when you're 14, everybody's like, "Yeah, I want to be a model." And so she got me into this like modeling school, which my mom and I went for. You had to pay for it. And it was like a couple of weeks of learning how to be a model. But what they did is they took all of us to a convention in Phoenix where all of the agencies, the real agencies in Europe, in Japan, in New York, all of those agents were there present looking for models. And that's how I actually first got signed by agents in Japan and New York and Paris. That's how I got my start. And it's very different now, with Instagram and social media and people being able to promote themselves. But back then, not only did you have to kind of get lucky, but then you had to be able to show up. And so when people had approached my mother and I and said, "Can she come to Paris for 2 or 3 months?" My mother went with me. We said yes, we could show up. So I think a lot of it was not everybody could show up in Paris for 3 months with their mom. And so that's how I got started. And then I know that the job that Troy's talking about was, so I had started initially in Japan. So there was kind of like a pattern to it, right? So you went to Japan. If you could get a contract to Japan, you could go there and you could make enough money to then go to Paris or Italy, and I chose Paris, and you had enough money to take care of yourself, to do the editorials and work for the big studios and build a book. And so I did that, and my mother came with me, and she was thrilled to come with me, by the way. And then I went and I saw a photographer named Tien, and he was the creative director of Christian Dior. And he hired me for the Christian Dior campaign. And my agency in Paris was flipping out. Like, it was a very, very big deal. And I didn't even know what a big deal it was. I wasn't nervous about it. The only thing that I was nervous about, this is what Tien said to me because I was a teenager. He said, "Whatever you do, don't get a pimple before next week." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, don't get a pimple. Don't get." So my concern was that, but everybody else was like, "This is it. You're going to hit the ground running." I had no idea what a big job it was and where that was going to take me. So I think that was one of the things that really got me started.
Wow, I love that so much. And I also think it's funny that as a teenager, you have to worry about not getting a pimple. And that's something that you like would maybe get.
Yeah. I mean, that was so. And then I thought, why did he say that to me? Of course, I'm going to get a pimple. The minute somebody tells you not to get a pimple, you're going to get a pimple. But I didn't. Thank goodness I didn't.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So, did you grow up in Orange County?
Yeah, you're in Orange County. I'm an OC girl, and I have 7 sisters, and um, we all grew up in Orange County. And I started driving back and forth for work to LA when I was 16. And then when I was 17, I know this is going to sound bananas, but I moved out of my parents' house and I moved in with my boyfriend near Melrose. It's just below Melrose. And I mean, that's insane. My daughter's 18 and I would never let her do that. But back then, it wasn't so unusual.
Yeah, and Melrose, I feel like was the spot. Was Melrose the show on then?
No, I don't think that show was on quite yet.
Like a
But
little after?
Melrose was yeah, it was a little after. It was very hot as far as like restaurants and all the clothing stores. And my boyfriend and I had a little apartment south of there, and we would walk up to Melrose, and you'd go to a restaurant and see like Robert Downey Jr. at the restaurant. Like it was very glamorous, very glamorous.
I love that. Did you also go to the Ivy? I feel like that's the spot to go
Oh
to.
yeah, the Ivy. We went to the Ivy, 10 people deep. Like, we went to all of those places. There was a restaurant called Cha Cha Cha. There was a restaurant called City. It was a very glamorous time.
I love that so much.
Yeah,
And then I just have to say, in Orange County, there's the Scouts. And when I was a kid, there was the Scouts coming too. And they scouted me, but I didn't have a story like yours. They just took me, did the headshots and everything. And then they were
right.
like, "Oh, here, you could be a part of this modeling camp that's like this amount of money and stuff." And then my mom was like, "No, we're not doing that." And then I was like, well, that would be fun to do that, but never did that. I just had those pictures done and that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it was happening for me at that time, there were fewer schools. And then sort of modeling schools became a really lucrative business. And so it was a little more legit when it happened to me because they were schools really based on introducing you to agents. And they had a way of doing that. So, and then afterwards, I remember a lot of people, there's been a lot of different times when I've done interviews for magazines or been interviewed in my career, and people have brought that up. Should I go to this modeling school? And then they were getting so expensive. I would kind of say I'd stay away from that unless you have the money. Like, I don't know if you would be successful doing that now. So it was kind of a different time. I mean, it was absolutely a different.
Yeah, I'm also short. I'm kind of stocky at times, so I don't think I would be the best model anyways. I don't have the body to be just like photographed all the time, you know? I mean, there are many different models out there now, but
Yeah.
for the time, I don't have the height even. I would be a little petite one. But I love that you did that. I love that you got your career started. And then something we were talking about the other day is how your daughter is even in modeling now and
Yeah.
how that is so different compared to when you got started.
So different. So different. My daughter, she started modeling about 15 years old, and we did a lot of shoots together, like a lot of mother-daughter, Mother's Day. So it was good. She kind of got the hang of being on set, and she's very professional. But yeah, it's very different. First and foremost, when I was modeling, you could literally get on a plane and be underage and fly to Europe and go do a job. And then there was, of course, no cell phones, no communicate. Like it was, but like I think about it now, and I don't know how we all made it, but we made it. And with my daughter, she's hyper protected. And, back then, you just didn't, there was different rules, there was different behavior. Like now, everybody is so kind, so supportive, so civilized. Like I feel like she's in a place where it's kind of on that side. I feel like she's safe on set. She's really safe on set. She's got a lot of support. People are really encouraging. But on the other side, their business is so flooded, the business with models on Instagram. So for me, the models who could make it, who could show up, got the careers, and not everybody can do that. So the competition wasn't as fierce, although it was fierce. It wasn't like today where, a client could go online and choose from 100 girls. So in the sense, it's better for her on the actual job and the way they treat her and her experience and the hours, and it's just very civilized, but it is more competitive.
Yes. And then also something we were talking about the other day is how can she be safe in the industry, especially with so many people having in-home studios and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so Willow works with our agency. So we don't actually talk to any clients. We don't book the jobs. There is pretty much no personal communication until we're on the job or until we're doing the fitting. So that's one way, is having an agent that really is vetting these clients, because I think that if you were doing it on your own, maybe online, which is a way too, because you're not paying agency fees, it could be very dangerous. It would be hard to know. It would be hard to know where you were going, if it was safe. And obviously, even now, I'm still going with Will to shoots. I'm coming in, I'm hanging out in the back trying to be, but you know, a lot of the work is done through the agency, and that's just something that's worthwhile for us.
I think that's a good safety net. But
Hmm.
if someone isn't doing it through an agency, what are some tips and tricks you would say for them to be safe?
Gosh, I would try, you'd have to try and Google them. You'd have to try and figure out like if it's a real company. I don't really know. I remember, I mean, I can't give that advice because I'm not really certain. I remember somebody had contacted me through Instagram about doing some skincare, and it was in Europe, like doing a job for some skincare. And I had asked them to please contact my agent and that I don't negotiate, over the internet. And then they just kind of disappeared for a little while. Then they came back a couple of months later and asked again. And I said, I need you to really contact my agency. And at that point, I was a little more curious. So I did try and sort of look up the brand and look up the person. And I found really no information about them. And so I thought, I don't know what it is. So I would just suggest to anybody before you agree or give out any information or show up anywhere, try and get some information, see what else they've done, get on their page, see what kinds of discussions have happened about them. I mean, I would probably do that because it's really hard to know.
Yes. Yes, so true. And then also, since the career is ever changing, the environment is just ever changing, what are some things that you have done to stay current or just, adapt to the industry that you're in?
Well, number one, I always show up. So no matter what it is, I always show up. So I've been doing this my whole life since I was 15 years old. And, it's been so different. It's changed so much over the years, but these are the things that I do. First and foremost, I never thought I wouldn't work. So I would say I came in with that attitude because a lot of people ask me, are you surprised that you're still working and that you're working so much? And I say, I never thought I wouldn't work. But luckily for me, when I started, my age, my look, that was kind of what was happening at the time. But I went with the flow. And as I got older, there was a time when they were saying, oh, after 25, there's no more career for a model. But as I aged and became 25, that kind of expanded. And with every decade, it's expanded. You know, I have like all of these products that women over 40 are buying and that are interested in. I'm marketing those products to them. So I just have been lucky that this business has grown as I have gotten older to my advantage. And so, I just showed up for everything. I modeled during my pregnancies. I modeled right after I had Willow. I did mommy and baby. I've been so lucky, but I think it's because I never stopped modeling. I never stopped taking care of myself. I never stopped showing up. I never said, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I show up 6 in the morning, this has to be here, drive over here, can you make it to San? I mean, we say yes to everything. And now my kids do it, and my husband's very much like that too. So, and I didn't believe it. Like at one point, this was kind of a big thing several years ago, is women in their 50s had gray hair and they were really kind of focusing on this particular look. And it was really beautiful and really awesome. And it was blowing up, but I did not have gray hair. So they were saying, women, over 50 with gray hair are doing really well. And that's really kind of the look. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stay the way I am and we'll see what happens. And I continue to work. Like I never bought into somebody else's idea of me. And I think it's hard to do that because you so much want to shift with the times and the looks to be able to work as much as possible. But I had faith in myself, I guess. And so many times people said to me, like I'm a blonde. I'm Icelandic. My children, you see my children, they're blonde haired, blue eyed kids. I'm a California blonde haired, blue eyed girl. I remember one point Ford said to me, like, I had short black hair and I'd already been to Europe and I was building my book and I was doing well. And they said to me here in California, well, maybe if you grow your hair out and you're blonde again, you could do some catalog work. And I thought, I don't believe that. And I just kept going. I just went to the next person. I just never gave up. And so I think it's been my attitude and my confidence in myself. And I don't know, my work ethic. Like I just think, yeah, we can all work. There's room for everybody.
Yes. Yes. And okay, so now I just have to ask, since you are naturally a blonde, how do you keep up with your hair care? This might be a random question that I just threw at you because I tried going red one time and that was a lot of upkeep for being blonde.
Yes. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's a big part of my life. And every 3 weeks, I'm getting my hair colored by another Terra. I love Terra's. My lovely hairdresser, Terra, she colors my hair every 3 weeks. And my husband's all, I'm like, okay, I'm running out. And she's an early morning person like me. I'll be like, I'm running out at 8 o'clock to get my hair colored. And he's like, again, you're getting your hair done again? Yes, it is massive upkeep. And at one point, I was asked, can you grow your hair out, for like 3 to 6 weeks so we could see if there's any gray to maybe do something with a color that covers the grays. And I said, I'm going to give it a try and let's see what happens. And it mostly is blonde, right? So it just grows out looking like my hair's lifting off my head. I have a little bit of gray kind of here and there, but very, very little. But yeah, I have to get it colored every 3 weeks. It's a lot. It's a lot of upkeep.
Yes, well, it's gorgeous. And
Thank you.
I thought being blonde when you're already like naturally like a dirty blonde is hard, but no, going to a different color that's darker is actually harder.
And red is the hardest, I have to say. Red is the hardest to maintain.
Yeah, well, I went through a breakup and then I was like, I need new hair for a minute.
And I'm sure you look really beautiful with red hair. You look like red would be a nice color on you.
Thank you. Well, I feel like, with the light eyes, we both have light eyes. When
Hmm.
you have a different color change, it just like changes everything. And then with light eyes, I feel like you could wear any hairstyle.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I
Yes.
agree.
So I think that something that you talk about is being a mom and balancing the two. How do you balance the two, even with you having a husband that goes on tour a lot? He is in the band Buck Cherry. And
Yeah.
how do you navigate having that balance?
I mean, it was really hard when they were little. I'm going to be honest, I had a lot of help. So initially, I had Willow, and it wasn't until she was about 9 months that I got help. And it was very hard because Josh was traveling so much. I mean, I think that was probably the busiest time of his career. He was literally gone for, sometimes 6 weeks at a time. He'd be in other countries. And so I couldn't work. I would try and get people to babysit for me. But if you get on a commercial and you're having a 14-hour day, it's really difficult. My parents helped a little bit at that time, but they were aging. So I ended up getting some help, thank goodness. But it's always been challenging because if Josh were gone, let's say he's traveling for 3 weeks, and I work all day and would come home to these kids, I'd go straight into the kids. So whomever was watching my mother and father or our nanny, I would go straight into that and then up the next day at 4 or 5 in the morning to go to work. So I'm going to say it was difficult, but we worked as a team, and Josh did everything he could to, you know, help me out. I didn't want to not work. I always wanted to work. And so, we had some bumps in the road, but I got it done. And then I started getting them, I would get them on shoots. The kids, I was like, okay, let's do a family shoot. Let's do Christmas for child. Then I started dragging them along because I could still do the job and have my kids. It's been challenging. We've really worked hard on being a family unit and being supportive. And I'm going to be honest, I'm solid. Like, I'm pretty solid. I'm like, okay, let's pull it all together. This is what's going to happen. We're going to do this. We're going to do. And my husband is pretty supportive, and he has a lot of faith in me. And so he's like, okay, we're doing it. So, gosh, I mean, the same as everybody. I feel like, there was some things I had to turn down, but overall, we've been able to accomplish everything we both wanted to accomplish.
I love that. And I think it's cool when you bring the kids into the shoot because you also get them another paycheck. I told someone that I was with a while ago, and we were talking about kids and talking about the possibility of a kid. And I'm the type of person where I wouldn't want people to know, like, oh, that's my kid, but I would be
Hmm.
like, I wouldn't mind if they're photographed in a commercial. I just don't want, just because of my true crime story,
Right.
I
Yeah,
get a lot of interesting people sometimes.
of course.
And so I'm like, I would put them in a commercial, but I would just not tell anyone that's my child.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes. And I know something we even talked about the other day is with having a fan base, there are so many incredible fans that support us, that support your husband and everything. But every once in a while, with the pseudo relationships, there are boundaries that you need to put in place. What are some of the boundaries that you've had to put in place by people just being a little too over curious and maybe not recognizing certain boundaries?
I mean, for us, we tr I think we're very careful online. There's not a whole lot of communication going back and forth online with people we don't know. My husband has like an incredible fan base. He has fans that are 12, he has fans that are 65. He has like this incredible fan base. He's pretty cool. He doesn't respond to a lot of negative stuff. Gosh, I think we have to just do kind of what everybody, it's a unique situation when you have like two people that are sort of known people. And I'm not saying that, I'm super well known or even that he is, but enough that we should kind of be really cautious and not overreactionary and really appreciate the great, cool, supportive fans and the people that, so many people love him so much. And I mean, like for example, my daughter, if anything gets kind of questionable, we ask her to just not respond and kind of block people. I think we're just doing kind of the same thing everybody else does. And just trying not to take things too seriously and know that it's kind of part of the gig.
Yeah, that is something that I've kind of struggled in my past relationships is having that balance where because of my trauma, it re-triggers me at times if
Of
someone's a
course.
little too on it or too there. So I just was curious how just you navigated that because of my own situation,
Sure,
having that in
sure.
being in the entertainment industry, there's always like that balance that you have to have between I hate to say even fans, but just like people that support you and people
Yeah.
that admire you. And I think it's so important to just have that balance in
Hmm.
life.
And also the relationship with your partner. So as long as the two of you are on the same page and you're looking after each other, I think it would be easier. Sort of what other people do around you doesn't affect you as much when you're feeling comfortable and solid in your own situation. And so Josh and I are pretty solid. So, I mean, as you can see, like I'm setting up my earbuds, we're pretty comfortable with each other and we feel pretty safe with each other. And having that within our marriage and our family is what helps create the balance. We trust each other.
I love that. I think that's so important in every relationship needs that.
Hmm.
If you're not being heard or listened to, like you should be heard and listened to.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I know we're getting to a little bit towards the end now, but I'm trying to think of what else we decided to talk about. But I feel like we kind of covered everything other than really like your wellness. We talked a little bit about mental health,
Hmm.
but you are such a wellness person and you do so many things to just stay young and vibrant, and your skin is
Yeah.
just glowing and amazing.
Yeah, I'm saying we because Josh does this too. I mean, you have to do all those things. You have to work out every day. You have to drink a ton of water. You have to stay positive. You have to have a schedule. One of our biggest things is routine, especially with my husband. This guy sticks to, because he's traveling all the time. He's in different time zones. So he keeps a schedule. He keeps, gets up, works out, eats at this time. We're very regimented, and we eat the same salads that everybody to eat. My son always goes, "Hey mom, are you having another salad?" And I'll say, "Yep, I'm having another salad." But I mean, the biggest things for me, and this is since I've been young. One, I think I told you I stopped going in the sun when I was 13 years old. Why I did that, coming from Southern California with my seven sisters, going to Newport Beach and putting baby oil on and laying in the sun, I don't know. But at 13 years old, I decided that's it. I'm never laying in the sun again. I had no idea that it would affect the rest of my life. And sunscreen is my number one. Like when people say, "Do you like this? Do you love that? What do you think works?" I think sunscreen works, staying out of the sun. And people don't want to do that a lot of the times. And sunscreen, it's my number one health tip, beauty tip, wellness tip is sunscreen. And I use heavy, heavy zinc sunscreen. And so my sunscreen and this just all those boring things. Like I was telling you, Josh is singing for a rock band and our idea of a rock singer. And this guy, he's juicing, he's up at 5, sleeping 9 hours. Like we are so boring but committed to this routine of taking care of ourselves and eating well, and just that's the same thing that everybody has to do. There's like no magic thing. It's just those same things: sleeping, exercising, eating well, getting enough water, sunscreen. And of course, I love, all the products, and I do a little bit of everything. So I do a little bit of face yoga. I do a little bit of red nay. I do a little bit of, shines. I do a little bit of peels, just a little bit of everything. There's not one thing that I could say is the end all be all for me, but I do a little bit of everything, and that kind of works.
It's fantastic. And I love that you brought up face yoga because Troy was the one that told me about face yoga. And I'm like, okay, we're doing like all these like
Sticking your
interesting,
tongue out. Yeah.
and I love that.
I kind of do a little, like I take a little, some of face yoga, I feel like, oh, am I stretching my face? Am I stretching the skin? So I do the moves that feel right to me, not all of it. And I do a lot of the massage, and I do the gua sha sometimes. And so I kind of been mixing it up. I don't do one thing to the extreme. And I think overall that has been my life, is I've never been extreme. I've always been super balanced, and that helps. I've never dieted, like I've never had a crazy diet and gone on and off diets. I've always kind of stayed the course with everything. I always have exercised at least 30 minutes a day. Like nothing too intense that's unachievable, but enough that creates balance.
Okay. And then, so everyone in LA, I feel like, doesn't eat gluten. Do you not eat gluten as well?
No, I eat gluten
Okay.
because I come from a big family, and that's like, I eat gluten. So what I do as far as, I mean, now because of my age, it's all this high protein. It's a fact. My son and I, we joined a gym. So my son decided that he was going to he's so thin and he's a teenager and he's so tall, going to put on some muscle. So he said, "Mom, let's join a gym together." And I said, "That would be great. And you could train me." And so we were going to the gym. He calls it a commercial gym. We were going to the gym pretty often. And he was working me out and he was working himself out. And after about 6 months, he goes, "Mom, I'm really starting to get cut, and I'm really starting to see the definition." And he's talking about how he's feeling like he's really achieving his goal. And he goes, "But your body hasn't really changed that much." And I go, "I know, because I'm over 50. I'm sorry, I'm over. But the thing is it, when he says it hasn't changed that much, it had maintained. So I said, "You're actually complimenting because I've maintained my body." So the thing is with the protein, and maybe people don't agree with this, and I don't know. I just know it works for me. But what I started doing is I started eating eggs in the morning. I started eating a protein in the morning. And I eat 3 eggs in the morning, and I used to maybe have coffee and a bagel, or coffee and an English, or maybe just coffee. But now I eat eggs in the morning and I feel so much better. I didn't even know that I was going to feel so much better. So I eat 3 eggs. People are like, whoa. And I try and find the biggest eggs that we have. I'm like, I want the three biggest eggs. But I eat 3 eggs in the morning and get my protein. It's hard to get all the protein they say you need. And I do drink coffee, just 1 cup a day. And like I said, no alcohol at all. And I eat salads, in the afternoon. And I eat fish and chicken at night. But I do eat gluten, and I do love a cupcake. And I do love some cookies every once in a while. You got kids. I do love pizza.
Oh, yeah.
So like I said, I just keep it, just, I'm trying not to go overboard on anything that's not very good for you.
Yes. I go back and forth between the gluten. And so some days I'm like, oh, I'll have a little bit. And some days I'm like, no, I'm not a gluten person. And it's funny because I watched this meme where it's everyone on set and they were going over the grip guy, the lighting person, and then they get to the actor and the talent and they're like, no gluten.
No gluten.
But I love that you just have a balance overall throughout your life, and I love that because that is something that I strive for in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's really hard for a lot of people to get to that point. And once you have balance in your life, it's like you kind of just stay there and you
Yeah.
stay just like on an even keel. And I love that so much. And so I feel like this is coming to a close soon, but is there any other questions that I should ask you that you would like me to ask you?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot. We talked about my career and my family and mental health and diet and exercise. And I think we covered it. I don't know if there's anything else I can tell you that's interesting.
Well, your whole life is interesting, so I'm sure we could talk for hours, but we covered all the
Thank you.
things that we
All the
wanted to talk
basics.
about.
Yes.
So for the people, I'm gonna do a little Patreon part, like a little exclusive part where we maybe go over your 5 tips for we kind of talked about it through this episode, but 5 main tips for staying healthy.
Okay.
And then for the people that are dropping off here, where can we find you on social media? Where can we support your projects?
I'm just Mitzi Martin on Instagram. Just my name, Mitzi Martin.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, and we'll drop off for
Thank
the
you.
Patreon. Thank you for listening to today's episode with Mitzi Martin. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please give 5 stars if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, if you're on YouTube watching, please leave a comment, hit the like button. Anything really helps to grow the podcast. Also, if you want exclusive content, extended content, there's always more on my Patreon, and all the links are in the show notes. So until next time, I'm Terra Newell, and thank you so much for listening to Terra's Baddies Club.